And again, welcome to the October 18th, 2022 General Membership Meeting of the Clarksburg High School PTSA. The PTSA mission statement is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. I have shared the agenda to everybody here. So again, as always, we are going to move to adopt or approve the agenda, approve of the meeting minutes. Going over the board and committee openings, we do have an appointment we have to vote for. I believe we do have quorum. We have, just to confirm, we have 6 online, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So that's 11 individuals, 11 members here. I'm going to start here. So we do have quorum. And let us open the floor to move and adopt the agenda. If there are no objections, we're going to continue forward. We're going to go over again the report of officers, principals connect, committee report, cluster coordinator report, new business, action items, and then we're going to adjourn the meeting. And then we're going to continue on with our special topic, which we have our special guest here, Mr. Kenny Scholes, who's going to go over his presentation of College Admissions 101. So again, if there are no objections to this agenda, we are going to continue forward. I don't hear objections. Okay, good. Thank you so very much again. And thank you, Mr. Uso. We are now going to go over, this is the meeting minutes from June 7th, 2022. We're still working on finalizing the meetings from the prior board meetings that we have had. So I have shared this as well to every member of the PTSA. If there are, again, no objections to the meeting minutes, we are going to move to motion to approve the meeting minutes here. So we finalize it. All in favor to approve the meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. I believe that was the majority said aye. So majority has, thank you. So majority has approved the meeting minutes. And I'm going to note here that the meeting minutes was approved for the meeting minutes from June 7, 2022 was approved at 7:09 p.m. Bear with me one moment. Meeting minutes approved at 7:09. Okie dokie. So the next line item of the agenda is going over the CHS board and committee openings. So we do have a few openings that are still, that we need support with. One is the fundraising chair, delegates. We have a candidate for one of our delegates, Ms. Lauren Moore. Committee chairs, faculty, student engagement after prom is huge. That's our big event towards the end of the year. We need to have a committee and start the meetings by the end of October. Last time we did it in February, and it was just super fun times. There's a faculty rep and then a student rep. But before we continue onwards, I would like to have Ms. Lauren Moore come and share a few words because she's going to be the candidate and we are going to vote to appoint her as one of our candidates for the delegate position for the PTSA this year.
Hi, everyone. I can't see myself, so.
Hey.
How are you doing? I'm Lauren Moore. My daughter is a 9th grader there. I also have a 6th grader at Holly Wells and a kindergartner at Wilson Wims. I also am an executive assistant to a CEO, and I'm really excited to get more involved and to help where I can.
Thank you. And so what a delegate does is they will attend the MCC PTA meetings and go there as our advocate for the Clarksburg High School team, and then share the information that they have received back to us. So then we can vote on it if we want to put a motion on it to, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. If we want to move forward, either agreeing or adopting what the MCC PTA board has shared with us, like either for anything related, like say they have like a mental health concern, or they have any kind of school, like maybe a school capacity advocacy work that they're trying to do. I know they're trying to do like a technology advocacy that they're trying to do right now. So those are important items that the MCC PTA advocates for us, and the delegate is an important role, so they could share our concerns as a community, and then they relay any concerns back that the board has shared to us as well. So they're like the liaison of sorts. So we're now going to open the floor for us to be able to appoint and approve her candidacy to be our delegate here. Anybody want to put it in the first motion?
How do you put in the first motion?
You just say, I'll put in a motion.
I will put in a motion.
I second.
Thank you, thank you. So the motion was put forward first by Angela, and then Mr. Wusu seconds it. So now all in favor to have Lauren Moore as one of our delegates to the for Clarksburg High School to the MCC PTA. Please do raise your hand. I'm going to start counting the hands here. One, two, three, four. Stephanie, Tina, Sharif, Nita, and Goldie. Are you abstaining? Are you able to raise your hand? If you're not able to raise your hand, are you able to say aye?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm going to stop counting in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 approved, 2 abstained, and 1 is a guest. So I'm going to note here 7 approved. So welcome to our team. Where's my notes? So 7 approved, 2 abstain, 1 guest. 714 for Lauren. Woo! Welcome, welcome. Then you have a meeting coming up there. Yay. Please lower down your hands. Thank you so very much. And if anybody wants to be part of our team, especially for the after prom faculty student engagement, please do let us know. And you can share, you can email me. I'll send our emails later, but yeah, please let us know. And if there's no other concerns or questions, we're going to go over to the next line item there. Yes. And this is going to go over the report of officers, president, vice president of education, treasurer, and secretary. So we're going to start with the president here. Are you able to?
Oh,
it's okay. Oh, no, you're fine, sir. Excuse me. So this is just my updates here. I attended a meeting for the School of Excellence. We submitted the application this weekend. It was cut off at October 15th, but they've extended it to November 15th. We do need to set out and draft. We need to draft and set out the questionnaire and submit it by November 1st. I think there's now going to be an extension for that, but we'll talk more about this in the new business section for this meeting. There's an update to the building utilization. Mr. Bazemore has shared that information with me. So now we have to submit reservations through MCPS as a formal PTSA entity. We have to do it for the entire year. And there may be some fees assessed for some of our events. I believe the meetings are covered for it. We have also connected with Clarksburg Church about a possible partnership for SSL hours projects for CHS students. So that's in the works as well. So this will supplement the amazing SSL hours that's been shared by the high school. We also need to work on CIP testimonies, whether in person or via video. So we have to submit those pretty much soon. So if you have any concerns or questions about that, please do let us know. And then a final update, Jersey's Mike's fundraiser netted CHS PTSA $150. Woo! And thank you to all who supported this, and especially to Susan Francis for leading this fundraising. So every amount counts, no matter how small or how big. So please do let us know if you have any fundraising ideas to further support the PTSA, because we're trying our best to provide support for all of our great CHS community here. If you don't have any questions or concerns, I'm going to go to the VP of Education report. VP Education is Sonali. She's not able to be here today. And she has wonderfully connected with the tutor doctor for college admission test prep. And that's going to be October 22nd at 11 a.m. and it's virtual. So what's different between this one and the one with Kenny Scholes is they have, they're also able to set up a, thank you. They're also able to set up, can't think of the word, mock testing. So you can try out, your kids can try out the mock test. I know some schools, they don't accept that. They are open to not accepting the SATs or the ACTs. But if your student does want to take the test, it'll be nice to understand like how they did. They can, very well take these mock tests to see if how comfortable they feel about it, get the actual feel for the SATs. I know my son is probably going to try it out, but I don't know if he's going to wake up though. Yeah, I don't know right? But we'll see. And then she also connected with Ms. Somerville about other events programs that we can collaborate on to support the students. There is a sign-up sheet that we've passed down because it would have to be, you have to register for it just to better understand, for them to understand how many students are going to come in and how many they would need to support for this mock testing. Any questions or concerns about the VP of Education report? If not, I'm going to continue forward. Oh, I don't know if you can see this, but this is, I updated Mr. Wusu. Let me share my screen here a little bit. It's okay. Yeah. If possible, let me share my screen because I just got that update. I'm so sorry, sir. And if I can find it. So this is the Treasurer's report. As of right now, I'm going to make it bigger. Can you see? So this is our report here. And as you can see, we have gathered our income so far is $2,374 since July 29th, what year is it? 2022. But then we've also had checks coming out for membership dues and insurance. So the total balance on hand is $5,027.27. Now, this is our budget. So this is the proposed budget here to the left, and this is the actual. And in terms of the membership dues that's come in, we've netted 2,150. And then, so there, I think I need to align with her there. There may be, these are the items that needs to come out is for the staff appreciation. So this is idolized, this hasn't been dispersed just yet. And then the upcoming MCC PTA dues that needs to be sent out is $645, or the overall national and MCC PTA dues that needs to be sent out is $645.75. So after that, we have a projected income of total disbursements of $2,634.08, and that would net us a projected income of $2,518.99, give or take a few. So this is what we are working with right now. So as you can see, we still need a lot of support because the overall income and expense netted, can you see this? Is total net income would be under right now, and the expenses is over 105% over what we have in terms of the income. So we need to work on increasing our fundraising and also increasing our membership drive, which we're going to get on to the next page. And I think I just messed that up. But any questions about the Treasurer's report? No questions? We're going to move forward. Next one is Mr. Wusu, Principal Connect. Do you want me to just share it here, sir?
Sure.
Okay.
Perfect. And I can put the thing in the chat when you're talking this time.
Okay.
But basically, you can see there the student population as it stands today. That includes students in virtual academy as well as students who are in middle college, so they don't come in the building. Juniors and seniors. and just the current student population. So, as you see there. Current upcoming events. Well, we got word today that we are once again the CHS is the top 25 source school for the University of Maryland, which means that in Maryland, in engineering, we supply the University of Maryland with their engineers. So that's a great thing. Our choral concert, it's a combined middle school and high school choral concert, is on October 26th. Sealed by literacy testing is in November. That's for native speakers and heritage speakers. And then we're going to have a motivational speaker for the student body on November 3rd. We have a homework-free weekend coming up at the end of the quarter, November 4th. And parent-teacher conferences, we'll be getting information about that for November 21st or 22nd. I put in there a lot of information about the Bridge to Wellness because a lot of people don't know about that, but basically we have what's called like 3 spaces. So we're not a Bridge to Wellness center. There are a couple of schools that are in Montgomery County, about 4 or 5 schools like Watkinsville, Gaithersburg, I think Blair, or Northwood, have actual like parts of the building are wellness spaces, centers, excuse me. So Bridge to Wellness Spaces, this came out of the initiative of the county executive and the county council, allows us to have spaces that were classrooms renovated for Department of Health and Human Services, as well as positive youth development. So further down, you can see that some of these, and also our social worker is also part of that process. So it goes down, kind of explains. I just put a lot of information about what those spaces are. So for example, as a social worker, our social worker works with students who don't have an IEP or 504 or any other outside services and can provide services for them. We also have psychologists and other social workers that can work with students that may have experienced some kind of trauma here or there. We have a connection with the Street Outreach Network for one of 8 schools, and they provide crisis intervention. They also work with just kind of motivating students and kind of mentoring students. It has, again, lots of information about just kind of the schools that have them and all the information that all the things that they do that are listed there. Further down, also, Clarksburg is one of the top dual enrollment schools in Montgomery County. Part of that is our proximity to Montgomery College Germantown, and also just the different programs that we have. And so this year we just found out, like last week, that through the blueprint for Maryland, that the state has to make these free. So kids that were in dual enrollment they'll be getting information about how they can get their families will get their reimbursement for that, because it's all basically new within the last week. So Montgomery College is trying to figure that out. But basically, it will be free for students to take classes at Montgomery College as part of the dual enrollment program, which is really, really cool. Already, students were paying a reduced price. Now it'll be free. The one thing that may have to be paid for are like books, those materials that can't be returned to the school. We'll have a Jumpstart to College Night on October 25th, so you'll probably see some information tomorrow and in my Sunday newsletter with the Zoom link, because that will be virtual, and we'll talk about that for next year. We've already started that process for apps as well as PTSA applications, and basically we're starting the process for next year already and enrolling in classes. And that's what I have so far.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I'll give a few minutes to somebody who has questions. And yes, the free tuition is amazing, because I read somewhere that it could be upwards of like $800.
Yes.
And then my son wants to do dual enrollment next year. So I was like, oh. And does anyone have any questions again for Mr. Wusu? I'm going to see if you can raise your hand. I think I can see it here. If no questions, we are going to continue forward here. Where is it? Okay. The next one would be membership.
All right.
Woo, Angela.
All right. This is Angela Kerrigan, and I'm representing the membership co-chairs, myself and Karsten Hansel. So our updates are that we have 123 members now. And as we were just seeing, that's the majority of the incoming funds right now. So definitely important that we boost them. Two things that we are looking to do in the near future. One is by the end of next week, we will have put flyers, membership flyers in each of the teachers' mailboxes, thanks to Todd Sprites for recommending that. And then working with the school to get an email blast out to the parents who have not yet signed up for the PTSA. So we figured we would do a targeted blast out to them as a reminder now that maybe hopefully things have settled down from the beginning of the school year and it's before the holidays. So kind of get in between those times. And we do have other ideas for membership. It's really the bandwidth issue. So if folks are interested and willing to spare a little bit of time and work with Carson and me, we can definitely get more of the ideas on the table and done. So I'm glad to answer any questions.
Yes, any questions about membership? And they're a wonderfully spirited bunch there. I love seeing them in action. If there's no questions, we are going to continue forward. And it's going to be, where's this? Oh, cluster coordinator report. So the cluster coordinators is Minnie Varghese, and she's also area VP. And then there's Teddy Wu and myself. So this is the cluster PTSA news. And I need to change this. It's not that, it's the 18th. Okay, so the news here for the cluster news is the one we're going to go over MCPS BOE CIP testimony, Consumer Health Survey, National PTA Reflections Art Programs, MCC PTA MCPS Community Conversation on Race and Racism, Speakers for Social Emotional Learning Mental Health Assemblies. First one, CIP testimony is scheduled for November 3rd, 2022. Clarksburg Cluster has 5 minutes allotted for testimony. Please send a 30-second video, preferably from a student. If from a student, please send the parent guardian contact information as well. Here are the timelines of the individual. Name of person and video must be sent over by October 16th. I know that date has passed, but it's fine. But video must be submitted by November 1st. Testimony sign-up must be processed on October 26th, 27th. I'm going to share with you all the links to the sign-ups here. Everyone. Okay. I don't know if you can see it, hopefully so. And it's like you're waiting for a concert apparently. So you have to park yourself at the links by like 6 p.m. and make sure you sign up if you want to sign up as in person or as a video testimony. Next is the next focus of the Clarksburg cluster is I can't see this, hold on one second, I'm so sorry. Is the Consumer Health Access Survey. So Marylanders have an unprecedented need for mental health and substance use disorder care, yet many individuals and families have trouble accessing care through their health insurance. So some states have established consumer assistance programs to help people understand their insurance coverage for mental health and addiction care, and identifying providers who will take their insurance, resolve care denials, and file complaints and appeals and enforce the Parity Act. State Senator Malcolm Augustine will be introducing legislation that will establish a consumer health access program for mental health and addiction care to assist state residents in accessing necessary services. We would like to garner a deeper understanding of how this program would serve our members. So this is the link to the questionnaire. Please do take it. I have completed this myself, and I completely understand the concerns about access to mental health care support and how expensive it could be. So if they are able to establish this, it will be a great resource for everybody here in the state of Maryland. The next one is about the National PTA Reflection Arts Program. I tried to do this last year, but I think I missed the cutoff. So hopefully we're able to do it this year. This program is free for the PTA to run and offer students an opportunity to showcase their artistic talents, as well as the opportunity to win awards, recognition, and prizes at the county, state, and national level. The award ceremony for our local unit is also a nice opportunity to create an arts-focused PTA event for the school, for our students, family, and friends. If any one of us here wants to be part of the Reflection Arts team, please do let us know. I think this will be a great program. I know for sure Clarksburg has a lot of great artistic talent here. I've seen the artwork being displayed on the halls. So please, let's see if we can establish this for the high school so we can showcase the talent here in the high school community. The next one is the MCC, PTA, and then MCPS conversation about race and racism. Whoops. That's actually Thursday, October 20th at 7 p.m. The discussion will focus on the findings and recommendations from a new report about the impact of race and racism and MCPS. MCPS is now working on an action plan to address the report's findings. At the meeting, we will hear about the report and give our input on what MCPS should do to address the findings. John Landisman, Executive Director for the MCPS Office of Strategic Initiatives, will join us for the conversation. You can see the report on the MCPS Anti-Racist website. You can also watch the presentation to the board here, and I'm going to share it. The testimonials began at 32 minutes and 30 seconds, I believe, and include some of the steering committee and many other parents who are part of the Black and Brown Coalition, and the actual presentation starts with the superintendent at 1 hour and 50 minutes. I'm going to share. I know I'm sharing a lot of links. I'm so sorry. But you're more than welcome to copy and paste it and then save it so you can look at it later. But I think this is a good meeting to attend, and it's a good place for us to advocate and just speak up about any concerns we have to MCPS and the leadership team. Number 5 is about speakers for social emotional learning mental health assemblies. Now, these are speakers that were at other high schools. We also have had speakers here to speak up about mental health from our end, and we're going to try to engage them as well. But if you have any other organization you're working with and you want any speakers that have great receptions that were well received by other high school communities, Phyllis, these are the list of a few of them. Phyllis Fagel, they spoke to Hoover PTA last fall, and she spoke about managing anxiety with middle school kids. This is her contact information here. Eric Garcia, he's a local journalist, and he wrote a book called We're Not Broken. And then PEP Parent Encouragement Program has some great programs for the PTSA, and it's based on Adlerian psychology. And they have many programs on many topics that are built to empower individuals. And that is all for the report here. And now we can have a brief discussion about this if you have any questions or concerns. I see Lauren has raised her hand. So Lauren, you're more than welcome to ask a question, share a feedback.
So I'm working with the Hallie Wells PTA to put together a autism awareness assembly, and we're working on with the Bravo psychologist, the behavioral therapist that I know, and she's more than happy to speak. So I'm actually meeting with the president of that PTA after this meeting to discuss it. So if you would be interested, I can get the information, or we can see how it goes there, and I can let you guys know and kind of report back and to see if you guys would be interested in the Autism Awareness Assembly.
Yeah, just let us know. And then what are the time frames so we can make it very impactful? It could be either a special topic or like a standalone presentation.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions or feedbacks about the cluster PTA report? If not, we're going to move on forward. And the next one is new business. New business is, and then we're going to focus on Q4, which is, I think we're in Q4, yes. And one is October 22nd, Tutor Doctor College Admissions Test Prep. That's a handful of to say, I'm sorry. Tutor Doctor College Admissions Test Prep Free Mock Test on October 22nd. October 29th is a canned food drive led by Susan Francis at CHS. She's partnering up with Clarksburg Can. Then there's After Prom and then the School of Excellence. And so we went over this. I'm going to share more information about the canned food drive through the emails and the Sunday messages from Mr. Wusu. So we're going to partner up, sir, to make sure we have those cans coming in to be able, or the food coming in to be able to distribute on October 29th. We'll have student volunteers. Actually, let me just share her flyer here really quick. So this is her flyer. So it's going to be, make this bigger. It's going to be October 29th, 11:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. And so she is leading up the adventure to collect canned and non-perishable food items, cereal, all kinds for both adults and kids, breakfast foods, pasta, rice, hamburger helper type mixes, canned fruit, juice, drink mixes, soups, any kinds, including ramen noodles as well, and toiletries. And students will be on site to help unload the vehicles. In addition to that, we will also be partnering, we're looking to partner up with the Clarksburg Church to support the holiday giving drives. They're supporting 150 families, so they would need quite about volunteers to support it. And I'm going to try to partner up with my other nonprofits here to provide actual food, actual bags of food to be able to distribute on their particular time frames of distribution. Any questions about that? Now we're going to continue forward. Did you raise your hand, sir? Okay, thank you. Next one is after prom. After prom is one of the biggest events following prom for the school year. And we have started the process of connecting with various partners because we don't want to cram everything in a span of 2 months. So we have to start really early. So we've connected with the Mid-Atlantic Adventures, and we can actually sign the contract now to reserve the inflatables. Last time we had we had a mechanical bull, we had one jousting inflatable, and then we had the trike race. And we can reserve them without having to provide the deposit. So yay. We've also reserved the hypnotist to be able to perform at the after prom on May 6th. I heard he's great. And he is free. He's volunteering. And so we need to build a team and set up a budget and work out the timeframes by the end of October. I'm also trying to connect with Mr. Kim, who is the junior class sponsor, to be able to partner up and make sure prom theme and our theme aligns. The last year's statistics is that overall cost for after prom is about $8,700. Attendees were 393 students, and we were partnering up with MCPD, CHS Building Services, staff, and security. Any questions about this? If not, we're going to continue to the School of Excellence. Okie dokie. School of Excellence. So what is a School of Excellence? And this is a program we were in the process of completing this last year, but the year got the best of us, with all the Omicron craziness and so forth. And it was just a crazy, crazy year. So we're trying again this year to be able to really build up on the partnerships that we have here in the school to enhance any efforts that we have set in place to support our CHS families. So the School of Excellence is a recognition program that supports and celebrates partnerships between local PTAs and the schools to enrich the educational experience and overall well-being for all students. At a national PTA School of Excellence, families feel welcomed and empowered to support student success, and PTA is a key partner for continuous school improvement. And being a national PTA School of Excellence will open the door to other honors and opportunities for our school. And this is a year-long commitment to identify and implement an action plan for school improvement based on PTA's national PTA standards for family school partnerships and informed by the National PTA Center for Family Engagement. And we're going to go throughout the year and using the tools and resources that they have provided to bring about positive change in family engagement. The final step of the program is for the work to be evaluated through a final application. And if we are selected and they have deemed our work here works for School of Excellence designation, then we will receive the 2-year National PTA School of Excellence distinction and recognition to be put up in the high school. How nice is that? Right? So I'm going to make sure this happens. So this is the areas of focus. So it's either we're going to focus on education, we're going to focus on we're going to focus on ensuring health and safety of the students, or we're going to focus on the arts. So these are the 3 distinct areas of focus for the School of Excellence. And then the first part of it is to roll out the survey. So we did the survey last year through the Google through the Google Forms, and we have about 80 respondents. So hopefully we'll have an increase of that respondents, so we have a larger sample size. And I'm not going to read all of the questions, but I will share this file with everybody later. And then that's it for the School of Excellence. Any questions for the School of Excellence program? If not, I'm going to continue forward. And the action items that we're going to do between now and the next meeting is we're going to reach out to MCPD about the substance abuse program that we would hope to be able to roll out in the spring. And that is, one of them is called every 15 minutes, minutes. And reach out to this to have a School of Excellence team. So if you want to be part of that team, please let us know. Drop and then publish a School of Excellence baseline survey, connect with community partners for overall fundraisers for the PTSA. I saw that Stephanie has shared some great fundraising ideas here. Let me just share them if that's all right. Let's see here. Let's see, there's some Pampered Chef one, and then Clarksburg Little Free Pantry has also opportunities. And we can talk more about that towards the end of the meeting before we start with a special topic. And then we also want to connect with community partners to establish and implement programs that further supports students and overall CHS community. Our next PTSA meeting is November 15th, 2022. If you have any ideas as to what would be the special topic, it could be something about mental health or community support or development, please let us know, and you're more than welcome to email it to us at our email here, clarksburghschool.ptsa@gmail.com. And I think we just have a few minutes here before we go to the special topics here. I can open the floor for a short discussion. If anybody has any questions, concerns that they would like to share, please do let us know. Special topics will start though immediately thereafter. I am opening the floor. Let me see, any raised hands? No raised hands. Oh, there's a raised hand. Oh, yes, Ms. Shiba, you are more than welcome to ask a question or share a concern or share some feedback.
Okay, well, it's my first meeting, so I do appreciate everything.
Yeah.
Information has been very helpful. And I did want to, because of everything that happened last week, I would like to have some kind of idea of, for the after prom, is that going to be something that would be available for all prom participants? Are we looking at, making sure we have facility capacity that would be able to accommodate? Just want to be able to make sure that we have enough upfront time to ensure we get full participation from all those who would like to attend CHS events.
Thank you. So I just want to reiterate your question or repeat your question. You want to make sure that the after prom is open to all prom participants, correct?
Right, because I think that, I was looking at Dr. Usso's breakdown of the student body numbers, right? So if you look at, is prom just for juniors and seniors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that would mean that the space should be able to, I just wanted to make sure that the reason why we capped the numbers at 1,000 for this weekend's event was because of we could not exceed that capacity. Is that what it was? And so there wasn't that was the reason why we could not have any more tickets sold.
I feel that's the understanding. I think maybe Mr. Vusu can share more about that. But in terms of after prom itself, after prom is open and it's free for everybody who goes to prom. there is no, technically there's not, we didn't have any caps for after prom, but we were going by with understanding that not many people would go to after prom. So we were very surprised when we kept seeing the numbers just go up, right, Angela? We were like, oh, 150, that's great. And then it went to 280. And then it went like to 390. And I went, is there enough food for that many people? So I'm thinking there's a chance it could remain at 393 or it could increase this year. I don't know. I think we need to prepare for that because we had a great reception for after prom from last year. So word of mouth may just have a lot of people want to come to the after prom. But yeah, we do need to start early. So I thank you for bringing that up because it's a huge undertaking. But yeah.
Okay.
It should fit everybody who goes. Mm-hmm.
Right. It's just that I just saw comments on the Facebook page about how to prepare for prom, like to expect the same thing to happen, what happened during homecoming. So I just wanted to know that there are accommodations being made now in advance to make sure that anyone who wants to go to prom can be able to go to prom, get a ticket, and so forth. Yes.
Yes, and I didn't let you talk. Just one last thing though, after prom is open to all juniors and seniors who may not want to go to prom. So it's open to anybody who just wants to go and they're in the junior or senior class. About the preparations for prom, I'm gonna let Mr. Owusu speak. And then after this, we are going to go to the meeting, the special topic. So Kenny, thank you for your patience. Please bear with us for a few more moments. Yeah.
Prom is going to be held right now at Marriott at the Rio. There is a capacity there as well because we don't have it here at the school. So it's less than 1,000. I think we were pushing maybe 600-700 maybe for that venue. So it is more expensive than homecoming. Homecoming was $20, I think. Prom is like $65-70. So, but it is, it's not at our venue and it's at the Marriott in their ballroom. So it is a smaller venue.
And I mean, just having the school population numbers in front of us is helpful. So if everybody from grades 11 and 12 went, it would be less than 1,000, or wanted to go, it would be less than 1,000 students.
Correct.
So, and then for after prom, there's no cap. And I would imagine that if we had 1,000 for homecoming here, that even if every grade 11 and 12 student wanted to go to after prom,
that would be just super fun to watch those kids maneuver. But yeah, so thank you for providing that clarification there, Mr. Owusu. Does anyone have any other questions or feedback there? Did he provide that clarification there, Ms. Shiba?
I guess what my and I want to go into Kenny's topic, so I don't want to digress for sure. And this can be offline discussion, but I just think that it truly is concerning to me that if we're looking at a prom capacity facility that can only accommodate less than 700 for students that are way over that, who are in that class of juniors and seniors, has there ever been a discussion about a larger venue to hold such an event?
Yeah, so Clarksburg has had it in the past in different venues. We've had it in Frederick, we've had it in Park, we've had it in different places. But truth be told, the number doesn't get that high. There are other venues that just cost more money. So, for example, some schools go out to the University of Maryland, and I think they have a room it's a bigger ballroom per se, where it's like over 1,000. It is further away, and it is more costly. So it's just, and some people go down to DC for a venue down there, and that is even more pricier. So it comes down to a price point and location. So I understand, you look at the numbers and thinking that everybody wants to come. That's not necessarily the case with prom and or homecoming. But you're also looking at the distance factor and the price factor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you there, Ms. Shiva. If there's no other questions or feedback, and you're more than welcome. If anyone has any input, you can share that with me. I sent the email there, and we can look over and we can discuss this offline and then make this as part of the topics for the next meeting. So thank you again for attending the PTSA meeting. Please do stay for the special topic session. I did drag my junior here. He needs to focus now because it's Kenny's top conversation. So, oh, there was a raised hand. Oh, sorry.
Hi, everyone. I just have a quick question regarding the PTA reflection. I was just wondering, is Clarksburg High School is already participating for the reflection, or are you planning to participate this year?
Planning. Not yet.
Okay. Okay.
Do you want to get involved, Ms. Goldie?
I shall try. And I was just wondering, do you have an area? Because my daughter, she won last year for the reflection literacy. And I was just wondering if like if there is a specific area you're looking for, like let's say art, you know, like what area are you looking for? I mean, this can be something where we can discuss later.
I'll talk with you about that later because we're still figuring that out as well too. But thank you for the question and the interest, and hopefully we can expand and build on that interest for the other students too.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And without further ado, I am going to stop my sharing so Mr. Kenny here can start his sharing.
Great.
And I made you a co-host.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So can I just jump on in?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. I just want to introduce Mr. Kenny Schultz here. He is the CEO and founder of Foundry Admissions, and he has been a great resource and partner for us. He did a presentation for us last year, and it was a very robust and a very informational information presentation about what our students should look for and how we can support our students when they're going through the college admissions process. And there's a lot of information that I was not aware of, and I'm trying to set that for my son. So that's why he's here. He was there last year, but I think we need more engagement and just more input and more of what you are able to share with us, because it's an ordeal to deal with, right?
Process. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me, Nadia. Always good to be with this group. I'm Kenny. So I don't know if you haven't interacted with me before or seen me talk. I'll give you a little bit of like who I am, and then I'll jump into some of these slides and walk through a little bit of an overview of how I think about the college admissions process. That said, though, like feel free to stop me, yell out questions, or at the end, happy to take questions if anybody has them. So I live in Poolesville. I actually grew up in Poolesville, graduated from Poolesville High School in 2002. So I am kind of a product of MCPS myself. I graduated Poolesville, went to West Point, the military academy, graduated from there in 2006. And then went off to the Army, went to Iraq twice, and then got out of there in 2011, got a grad degree at Princeton in 2016, and then moved back to Poolesville with my family at that point in time, which is where we are now. So kind of back where I started. So what does any of that have to do with college admissions? My entry into this arena, oddly enough, happened in the Army. I had some soldiers who had enlisted straight into the military from high school. And before we came back from Iraq, they were interested in getting out and going off to college. And so they needed some assistance in applying to college. They were actually doing the process from Iraq. And it turns out there's not many people around in that part of the world to help with college applications to US universities. And so I kind of found myself in the position of, needing to jump in and try to help them, manage the process and figure out how it works. And honestly, at that point, I was learning as much as they were at the same time. And so we kind of worked through it together. And I just found that I really enjoyed helping others kind of put their strengths forward, showcase their talents, their experiences to these colleges, and then just, sit back and watch the acceptance letters hopefully come rolling in. So that kind of got me started. I've been working with families initially mostly in Poolesville, and then when COVID hit, oddly, everybody knew how to jump onto Zoom. And so now it's quite easy to be able to jump onto calls. And so now I'm working with a lot of families from Clarksburg, but also from across Montgomery County, which has been really exciting and great. So what I'm going to talk through tonight is kind of what I would consider to be like a college admissions 101. It's really how I think about the process and kind of what I think are some of the key aspects of it to consider. I think that this is relevant regardless of what grade your student might be in. Probably most relevant for juniors, but I think freshmen and sophomores can certainly learn a lot. And if you have a senior, hopefully you're already somewhat deep into the process, but if not, you might get something out of this as well. Okay, so one of the things, and you've probably seen this as parents a little bit, but we live in a very competitive area in regards to academics. And as a result of that, what I have found the last few years working with students is that applying to college, and even before you get to the applications, just researching colleges and starting to think about college is a very stressful and anxiety producing time. That's true for students. It's also true for parents. And I think something that has happened that's unfortunate is we've become, as a country, very fixated on a couple of what I would call name brand schools. And these are like the Ivy Leagues, the MITs, the Stanfords of the world. Don't get me wrong, they're wonderful schools, but the reality is that they have acceptance rates that are just ridiculously low. I consider these schools almost lottery schools. It's as much a roll of the dice as it is anything else that a student will be accepted into those places. And the problem that I think we have with that is that there are so many other great colleges out there that would be great fits for all kinds of students. And sometimes we kind of ignore those just to focus on kind of these bigger name brands. And so one of the things that I always remind, and frankly, this is more a message for parents than for students, but I'm always reminding parents is that your students are going to be successful out in the world. They're picking up those skills in high school. They're going to pick them up in college, wherever they go. But their success in life is going to be far less correlated to the name of the college on their diploma. And it's going to be much more related to the experience that they have at whatever college they end up at. So let's just do our best as we are helping our students navigate this process to remember that, sure, we want to have some of these highly selective schools on our list. We want to have some reach schools on there, but we also really want to be looking for schools that are more in kind of what I call that target zone. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so on this, I'm frequently asked, how do we guarantee admissions to a college? And obviously, there's no guarantees here. That we live in kind of an admissions world now where I don't like to use the word safety at all for any school. I think it's a little bit too presumptuous. And certainly, there are schools that are safer than others, and we want to make sure that as we're building our college list, we're taking that into consideration. But I think what ends up happening here is we get very stuck on aspects of different colleges that we have very little control of. Things like, the number of times a student will say to me, well, the acceptance rate here is only 12% and this school is 15%. So I think maybe I'm going to apply. And I think that is the wrong thing to focus on, frankly. I think as we're navigating this process, we really, to the best of our abilities, want to stay focused on the things that we actually can impact and influence. There's nothing we can do to change what the acceptance rate of a college is going to be. We cannot influence the type of profile that a college is looking for in a particular year. We cannot change you know, whether or not we're an international student to meet, you know, some of the institutional requirements for a college that year. But we can influence and affect the main pieces of the application package, which I'll talk about in a second, but are things like our GPA, our essays, the way that we interact and engage with the college along the way, right? Those are the things that I think we should really focus our attention on. Okay, so I've been talking a little about like schools that are really selective, and there are plenty out there, but I think one thing that is sometimes lost in that discussion about selective colleges is the fact that actually in America, most colleges have acceptance rates that are very approachable. And you can see in that highlighted box there, you know, the average acceptance rate for all four-year colleges in the US is about 2 out of 3, okay? So when we, you know, get very fixated on those Ivy League schools and we're looking at those, you know, 2 and 3% acceptance rates, I think sometimes that creates and kind of drowns out the reality that that is not a normal acceptance rate for a normal US university. And just to kind of illustrate that point, right, we've got some of those, what I would consider name brand schools here on the left. And then we've got schools on the right, which are excellent, excellent schools, and frankly, make up the bulk of most of our students' college list. And you can see the difference in the acceptance rates between these two places. And don't get me wrong, the schools on the left there are excellent schools. I just told you I have a graduate degree from Princeton. I loved my time there. And to be clear, I never, ever would have gotten in there to undergrad. It just wouldn't have. It was a different game applying to grad school, right? But you look at places like Virginia Tech with a 70% acceptance rate. Now, I would say that's gone down slightly in the last year or so, but generally speaking, don't buy into the hype that getting into college is, you know, an impossible feat. It is definitely not. And I say that because I am very confident, and it's one of the few guarantees that I make really the only guarantee I make with students when I'm working with them, is that if you do the work and you put in the time and the research and you build a compelling list of colleges that truly kind of are partly in that target zone, maybe a few that are a little bit on the safer edge of things, and then some that are in that reach category, you will get accepted to a number of great colleges. And I'm not just talking like one acceptance, I'm talking multiple acceptances. I've never had a student not get accepted to a college or only get accepted to one. And quite frankly, I don't think that that's because I'm doing anything special. I think it's because they are spending the time through the process, really researching these schools and figuring out what is going to be the best fit for them. Not what is going to be on the front page of New York Times or the top of the rankings, but where they think they will have the most engaging, inspirational, enjoyable, and comfortable experience over these 4 years. So, you know, what are colleges looking for? If you go to different college websites and you look at what they're trying to, you know, look for in an applicant, you're going to see all different kinds of language used. The reality is, though, that while they say different things, I think it largely boils down to a couple of key factors that are most frequently looked at. So first, and by far most important, is the GPA. We really want to keep that GPA as high as possible, okay? And colleges aren't just looking at how your student has done like on a general level. They also want to see how much have they challenged themselves along the way through the 4 years of high school. And this is why sometimes weighted GPA becomes an important factor or data point, because that weighted GPA, which will show up on your student's transcript, really kind of connotates to a college not only how well they've done in their academic classes, but kind of how challenging that course load is that they've decided to take on. And I want to be clear, I'm not advocating that, you know, a student should take 7 AP courses and completely burn themselves out. You know, it's about taking on a challenging curriculum, but also recognizing that balance, also recognizing personal limits and what actually can be done, balancing it with some of these other factors, right? On that point, the extracurriculars and I think linked with the active summers piece is really about how have you spent your time outside of the classroom? And if you think about what a college wants, they want students who are going to show up on campus who are definitely ready to do the academic work that is expected at that institution, but they're also looking for students who are going to show up on campus and really lend their voice and their passion to whatever those personal interests are that they can kind of influence on campus. And if you think about a college assessing a high school student, the only way to really make an assessment about whether or not a student is going to get engaged on campus is to look at how they performed in high school. What kind of engagement did they do outside of the classroom? And that comes in a lot of different flavors. That could be obvious things like playing on the high school sports team or being part of student government. But it also could be, holding a job. Could be, maybe Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. Could be some type of community service, volunteer work. Could be, a whole range of things outside of the classroom that aren't necessarily directly tied to the high school. All of those things count. And on the summers piece, colleges aren't expecting that students are spending their summers in summer school or whatever. But I think what they want to see is when you have this big chunk of time off outside of the classroom, how do you choose to spend that time? So they expect to see things like vacations and rest. They'd also expect to see some level of kind of furthering a personal interest. Maybe you have an interest in engineering and you spend a week at some kind of robotics event at University of Maryland. Maybe you're an athlete and you're spending a lot of your summer in some kind of training camp, training up for the next sports season, right? Maybe you are adventurous and like being outdoors and you spend some time hiking a local trail or mountain, whatever. All of these things count. I think it's really just about how do we kind of highlight the way that you've spent that time on the applications. Okay, the testing, so SATs and ACTs, this is always a big one, and I'm more than happy to answer questions about this at the end, because I know parents have a lot of questions about this right now. Most colleges are test optional, meaning that you can choose whether or not you want to submit your SAT or AC test scores. Firstly, my recommendation is everyone should take at least one of either the SAT or the ACT, right? Worst case scenario is you don't like your scores and you just don't send them anywhere. But I still think it's a very useful experience to have under your belt, and it's useful just to kind of see where you test on this thing. From there, as we build a college list, we can look at, are there any schools on your list that require the SAT or the ACT? So not increasingly, hopefully everybody can hear me. I think I got muted for a second.
I am so sorry. I tried to admit somebody and then
Oh, no worries. No problem. We're seeing some schools start to go back to a test requirement. So we've seen schools in Florida and Georgia specifically, plus I think MIT, Georgetown, a couple of others that have gone back to kind of requiring a test score. So you just want to know that early going in that you're going to need to be able to submit a test score to those schools, whereas other schools appear to be pretty comfortable with the test optional nature or policy they've chosen. And that doesn't look like it's going to change in the next year or two at least. But we can certainly talk more about that. And I'll show you in a minute how I think about making that decision on, do I send a test score to a school or not? Do I hold it back if I have that option? And then finally is this idea of demonstrating interest. And this is something that, is a term that's increasingly being used in kind of the college admissions world. You'll probably start seeing it or hearing it as you start to research colleges and look at kind of application requirements. It's basically this idea that colleges want students on their campuses that actually want to be there. And how do we show a school that we're really interested in actually being a student at their university? And also, why does that even matter? How does that even play a role in whether or not a college is going to send me an acceptance letter? So I'm going to talk about that in a second. I just want to note it's not the most important thing here, but I will talk about it at length at the end, just because I think it's something that does fall into that category of things that we can actually control. when I think about the 4 years of high school in relation to applying to college, I think about it in this mountain climbing analogy. And if we're thinking about high school and applying to college as a mountain, think about the summit of the mountain being getting all of your applications submitted, in a way that is minimally stressful, right? And so how do we get there? So in ninth grade, frankly, I don't think that there needs to be a whole lot of college admissions related activities taking place. I think really ninth grade is all about students establishing a strong foundation, both academically and then maybe even exploring some extracurriculars and really getting used to that high school environment. If you're attending, the University of Maryland's football game or a basketball game, maybe you walk around campus a little bit just to get a sense of what do college campuses look and feel like. But I don't think there actually needs to be a whole lot of work on the college admissions process at this stage in the game. I frankly think it's a little bit too early. In 10th grade, still a lot of focus on those high school academics, digging in on extracurriculars a little bit. Increasingly, we have some ability to show some leadership potential in the high school. And then some college admissions prep starts to begin. I've kind of found in the past that when students take that PSAT for the first time, all of a sudden they have this test score and they can start using it to kind of look at and compare their numbers to colleges. And that's sometimes when I start to see parents reaching out to me and asking questions about the process. I still think it's a little bit early, but certainly at this stage, you can start building some college lists and thinking about what are the different options, what are my interests at this point in time, recognizing they're going to change a lot between 10th and 12th grade. Okay, 11th grade. So this is, I think, when the process really kicks into high gear, and especially in the spring of junior year. This junior year is challenging because not only are we giving some of our hardest coursework in the 4-year high school curriculum to students at this stage in the game, we're also starting to throw on top of them things like increased requirements and responsibilities in different extracurricular activities. In the spring, a lot of our juniors are going to take the SAT or the ACT for the first time. And so there's, sometimes there's some prep work that goes along with that. We can, towards the end of junior year, we can actually, believe it or not, start writing some college application related essays. So, and then we start doing some visits over spring break. So it starts to ramp up a bit. And I can see it, especially spring with the juniors. They're starting to kind of get into that zone. And then 12th grade. So, I think we do a little bit of a disservice to our seniors. I think we paint this picture through high school and we tell students, once you get to senior year, it's all just downhill. You're just coasting to the end. You've made it. You're a senior. And I think if you were to talk to the seniors that I'm working with right now, or any of your seniors that you interact with, they would paint a different picture of what their life looks like at this moment. The first 90 days of senior year, I consider to be kind of the 90-day sprint. September, October, November are quite busy for our seniors because they are still taking hard courses, but they are really in full-on application mode. So they are spending a lot of time writing essays. They are taking that SAT or ACT for the last time if they need to. They are, working with parents on financial aid forms like the FAFSA and the CSS profile, right? So there's a lot of things going on top of all just the daily stuff. Once we get past November 1st, really, November 1 is kind of the big deadline. Once we get past there, it does ease up a bit. And then second semester, I think is more like the 12th grade that we kind of paint the picture of through those 4 years. Okay, so when I think about the components of the application process, this is how I think about it. And I know there's a lot of things on this page, but really what I want to focus on is, again, those things that we actually can control in this process. And so when I'm talking with students, freshmen, sophomores, and even early part of junior year, really their control is pretty limited to GPA, maybe some extracurriculars. But as we, and potentially starting to think about the SATs, but as we get deeper into junior year towards senior year, it's these items on the right side of the screen that start to play an increasingly important role. And we can really start to shape and play a role in making sure that we're kind of utilizing to our strengths when we're pulling together these application packages. Okay, so GPA, I've already mentioned, this is the most important factor on the application. In my view, this is kind of the foundation upon which applications are built. SATs and ACTs. So again, so if the school that you're applying to requires the SAT or ACT, then you're going to have to send a score. But that's less common these days. Most schools, the vast majority, are test optional, which means you take the SAT or ACT, you take it multiple times, and you have the option of whether or not you want to send your scores to that school. And you even have options around which scores do you want them to see. And so the challenge here, and this becomes kind of an additional stress point, is as a student looks at a college and they look at their SAT score, inevitably they wonder, should I send my scores or not? And the way to think about this is, if you do not send a score, colleges have repeatedly stated that they will not hold that against you. They just will not consider that as part of your application package, right? So they're not going to read into it. They're not going to assume it must have been a really bad score, otherwise, he or she would have submitted it. They're not doing that. And from everything I've seen the last few years, when colleges say that, they're being honest. I have seen no clear circumstances where I thought a student was penalized on their application for not sending a score. The flip side of this is, if you have a really good score and you submit it, it can definitely help you. And so the way that I kind of help guide students in thinking through this process is, as we look at each college, we can look at the average SAT or ACT range of accepted students from the prior year. And then what we do is figure out what is the midpoint of that range. And if our score is kind of around that midpoint or higher, we're going to go ahead and send it. And if it's not, then we don't, right? So the way that I think about this is, does this score help me? Does it add to the rest of my application package for this specific school or not? And if it doesn't, then just hold it back, right? And so with my current seniors right now, I think the vast majority of them are probably sending their scores to maybe 75% of the schools on their list, and then holding it back from like another 25%. So it's completely normal to hold them back, completely normal to send scores to some schools and not to all of them. The extracurricular, so I talked about this earlier, and the thing that I really want to stress here is this quality over quantity piece. I talk with a lot of students, and they come to me, and they are under the impression that they need to have been part of 40 different clubs to be a competitive applicant at selective colleges. And that is truly not the case. In fact, in some ways, that would be a negative thing as far as colleges are concerned. What colleges want to see is sustained commitment where you're making impact in a couple of different areas, right? So the student who's only done 3 or 4 different clubs, but really been deeply invested in them, clearly shown that they've maybe taken a leadership role or helped influence a change in that club, or made some change in their local community, that's going to be weighted way more positively than the student who's been a part of every single sports team that the high school has to offer and is just kind of jumping around. So I just want you to keep in mind that it truly is a quality more than a quantity game. Okay, and then how are you spending your summers? So I phrase a slide like that because I increasingly see that question, either in essays or optional application interviews, where a college will say to a student, how have you spent your time over the summer? And again, I think the only bad answer to that question is basically to not have an answer. I think if you can talk about, rest, and you can talk about some kind of vacation, and maybe how you pursued one of your interests, and maybe how you had a job, like those are all great things. Colleges will view all of that positively. We just want to make sure that we have a compelling story in our minds about how we spent that time for some personal growth in a whole bunch of different areas. Okay, so the essays. So this is something that, you know, we could do a whole separate session on, and I'm more than happy to do that. But I would just kind of say to you as parents, the amount of writing that students need to do to apply to colleges these days is significant. It's a lot of writing. And I will just be completely honest and tell you that the vast majority of students are not ready for it. They wait too long, they start too late. And frankly, I don't think that they have spent enough time in high school kind of honing in their writing skills to be effective writers. So my recommendation to parents now is the one very, very crystal clear correlation that I've seen with my good writers is they are all strong readers. So if we do not have some kind of daily leisure reading habit, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, I promise you that is going to be incredibly beneficial, not only for writing these college applications essays, but when I talk to former students who are off at college and I ask them, hey, what's the biggest change from the high school level to the college level? They always say it's the expectation on how much we need to read and write. And so the sooner we can start instilling that habit, the better. And I recognize that's not easy because we load our high school students up with so many things. So I know that even reading for 5 or 10 minutes before you go to bed at night is not as easy as it sounds. But I just cannot stress enough that it really pays dividends with the writing. And, you know, most colleges now, in addition to one big, what we call the personal essay that a student will write and it'll go to all their colleges. In addition to that, most colleges have at least one specific essay they need to write just for that school. And if you think about that, the average student now is probably applying to between 10 and 12 colleges. Those essays add up. And then you stack those essays up on top of extracurriculars and AP courses and SAT testing and everything else going on in their world. It's a lot. I'm living it with a lot of seniors right now. Right when I get off this call, I'll be jumping on to help them think through some essays, right? So the more that we can do to prepare for this part of the process, the better. Okay, our deadlines. So, you know, a lot of students, when we first start talking, think that there's, you know, colleges only have one deadline that they use. And that's really not the way it works. All colleges now have multiple deadlines. These are the most common ones. And so you will increasingly see these terms. So I just want to kind of throw them out there so you kind of are familiar with them. So regular decision is kind of what it sounds like. It's typically the last deadline. It's the latest deadline. For most schools on the East Coast, it's in January, but it can be, you know, February, March, even into April in some cases. And then we have 2 early deadlines that sound very similar. And in fact, many times fall on the same dates. There's early action and there's early decision. Now, these 2 things are very different. Early action is an early deadline. You can apply to as many schools as you want using early action. It's non-binding, meaning if you use this deadline and you get into the school, there's no requirement on you to attend that school. Early decision, on the other hand, is binding, meaning that if you pick a school to apply early decision, you have a binding requirement to attend that school if you are accepted, okay? And so frequently parents and students will say, like, well, why would anybody do that? The reason that you might do that is because your acceptance odds go way up when you make that kind of commitment on the application, right? So if you are in a circumstance where there is a school that is clearly your number one choice and you are not quite as concerned with the financial aid aspect of college, because again, you're kind of going to be locked into this school, then early decision can be a useful and powerful tool. I will tell you, very, very rarely is that the case. Very few students that I've worked with have used early decision because it just, they didn't meet one of those 2 criteria at whatever schools they were looking at. Restrictive early action is, it's almost a mix between early action and early decision. It's only used by a couple of schools, mostly Ivy League, plus I think MIT, Notre Dame uses it, a couple of Stanford maybe. But it's kind of like early action. It's not binding, but it limits how many private institutions you can apply to. And then finally is rolling, which is my personal favorite, which basically means as you apply, the college is going to review your application and then send you an acceptance as they come in, right? So that's why it's rolling. And so the beauty of rolling is a lot of times you get that early acceptance on the board if you get your application in early. So I just had a student today get accepted to University of Pittsburgh, which uses a rolling deadline. And it's almost every year Pitt is one of the first acceptances that we get because they have a rolling deadline and it's a really popular school in this area. Yeah, and then just to kind of show you in purple, like where the typical dates are. So as you can imagine for our seniors, and if you have a senior, you know this, it is high stress time right now with 1 November quickly approaching, because that is probably the most popular deadline that students are going to use. And so there's a lot of work being done leading up to that deadline. Teacher recs, most colleges require 1 teacher recommendation. They'll allow up to 3 or 4. I think, the way to think about this is as a student, just begin to think about, if I had to ask teachers to write me recommendations, who might I reach out to? And the more that we can do to kind of refine and hone those relationships, and also just ensure that our teachers are aware of what we're doing outside of the classroom, the better able they are to write you strong recommendations when it gets to that time for them to do that. Okay, so last few slides here, and then happy to take questions. So I wanted to talk again on this idea of demonstrating interest. And this is basically how I stated here. How do we make a college believe that they are your top choice? Okay, so before I kind of talk about these different things that we can do to demonstrate interest, let me talk to you about why this even matters in the first place. Why is this even important to colleges, and why does it correspond to acceptances? Okay, so I think about applying to college as a little bit of a game. And the game is that colleges are a lot of great things, but one thing that they definitely are is a business. A college exists to make money, okay? And we can never lose sight of that, because it's a really, really important thing to remember when we're trying to think about and anticipate how a college is going to make a decision. These are, when they are accepting students, they are making business decisions. They feel very personal, but they are actually business decisions. So colleges have this challenge. I don't feel sorry for them, but they have this challenge facing them, that when they receive a application from a student, they know that really no student is applying to only one college. So they know for each application they receive, that student's probably applying to 8 or 9 other colleges at least. And they also know that when they send an acceptance letter to a student, that student is probably receiving a bunch of other acceptance letters, okay? And if I'm a college, the way that I generate my revenue is through that tuition that I receive from students. And so the tricky part for me is that when I send a student an acceptance letter, if they receive it and just say, okay, thanks, I'm gonna actually go to this other college, that doesn't really do me any good, right? I don't get that tuition money. I don't have that revenue coming in. And as you can imagine, that's kind of tricky, because a college each year really needs to have a sense of what is that revenue stream going to look like. They need some predictability in it. And so colleges have hired entire teams of essentially data analysts who are making assessments on applicants to determine what are the odds that this student will actually come and enroll in our school if we send him or her an acceptance letter, okay? And colleges really need to get this right, because imagine 2 different scenarios. Imagine that they send out all these acceptance letters and fewer students than they expected decide to actually enroll in their school. Now they have this issue. They don't have enough students on campus. They don't have enough of that revenue coming in to keep that business model sustainable. On the flip side, now let's imagine they send out those acceptance letters and more than they expected decide to enroll. Now they've got all these students showing up on campus and they don't have the physical space to deal with them. So it's really, really important that colleges get this right. And this is called the yield rate, which is essentially, if we send out 100 acceptance letters, how many of those do we expect to result in a student actually yielding and coming to our college and not going somewhere else? So what are we trying to do? Our role in this game is to try to, this sounds so bad, but this is what we're doing. We're essentially trying to convince each college that they are individually our number one choice. We know that that's not the case, but that's kind of not our problem. That's the game we're playing, right? And the way that we convince a college that they are our top choice is by doing those little things to show them that we really want to be there and that we've done our homework. So that when a college is reviewing student's application package, they can say like, wow, I mean, look at this essay that Kenny wrote. He speaks so specifically, he names a specific professor. I mean, he talks about a building that he's excited to study in. He said yes to this optional interview. He visited our campus and he sent some really good questions to our admissions officers. We're pretty confident that he's all in with us. So we're probably gonna, if we send him that acceptance letter, it's highly likely that he is actually gonna attend our school. Now, why does this matter? This matters because if I'm an applicant and there's 2 or 3 other applicants that on paper I look very similar to, if I'm the one that has shown the most interest along the way, I'm probably the one that's going to get that acceptance letter because I'm kind of the safer bet. Okay. So again, this is not the most important part of the application by any means. This is more of kind of a little thing that we can do just to kind of on the margins, enhance our odds so that if we're being compared to a few other students, we will get that extra nudge. Okay. So that's kind of my take on this demonstrating interest piece. Okay. And with that, I'm happy to take questions. I would just say happy to have conversations with anybody about work together or just answer questions through email or whatever. If you put your email in the chat or whatever, I'm happy to send you these slides if you think that they would be useful. I really, I want to see our students from Montgomery County go off and do great things at great colleges, because I think I'm a little bit of a evidence of that ultimately a lot of our students are going to come back and they're going to be parts of our local communities. And so I want them to come back, engaged and inspired from their 4-year experience and ready to start businesses and get involved in local government and do great things. So I really see this as kind of a little bit like a community building thing too. So anyway, with that, I will jump off my soapbox and happy to take any questions that you all have.
Thank you so very much, sir. So and as always, a great presentation. I feel like I learned something new. I saw this presentation last year, but I feel I learned more things as well this year. So thank you so much. My son is a junior, so I like how you said this are the grinding years. These are like the crazy years here.
Yep.
Anyone here, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. For Mr. Kenny here, and then I can have you come off mute. Any questions from this side? Oh, Sheba, yes, you can engage Kenny there. Thank you so much.
Hi, Kenny. I'm sorry, I'm not able to put my camera on right now. But I did have some questions. I thought that was a great presentation. As far as your services go, if we did want to get your information, maybe to, review essays or something like that, if you could give some insight on how that would go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So typically what will happen is, if you're interested in kind of having that conversation, just send an email to that email address down there at the bottom, foundryadmissions@gmail.com. And normally what I will do is I'll send you a link to schedule like a free consultation phone call. We would have a conversation about kind of where you are in the process. Yep. Thanks, Nadia, for posting that. And from that call, I'll get a sense of your needs, where you are in the process. And then normally what I'll do from there is kind of make some recommendations or send a proposal for like, okay, here's what I would recommend for work together. Here's how that would look. Here's the cost associated with that. Here's kind of the timeline, things like that. And then families normally go back and they review it. And then they come back to me and they can either say like, yes, let's move forward, or no, I'm not interested. Or they might even say like, hey, I like part of this, but I don't think we need this other thing. So maybe we can change some of this, you know. So I try to keep it as flexible as possible. So, you know, I'm happy to work with you. So just, I would say, just if you're interested in having that conversation, just shoot me an email. I mean, absolutely no obligation to work with me or anything like that. I want to be here to help in whatever way I can.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Sheba. Anyone else have any questions? Questions from the floor? Yes.
Can you talk about scholarships and or grants, and because getting into school, as you said, is one thing, but then paying for it is another thing.
That's right. So I think of the money piece, the financial piece, as kind of like phase two, right? So just for what it's worth, currently working with seniors right now. So we're working to get in all these applications for a lot of students, the bulk of them by November 1st. Once they've got their applications in, then we kind of turn our attention to how do we pay for this? And there's a couple of different ways that this comes in. So the first is making sure that our families are filling out the FAFSA, which is the form that you'll use to send in. Everybody should fill this out. And it's essentially to check and make you eligible for financial aid, right? So that's money that you receive based on your financial need. Everyone should fill that out. Again, I'll say it again. And then in addition to that, once that's in, we can also start to look around at local scholarships that might be available. A lot of times, and I'm sure that CHS is no different, a lot of times high schools maintain like a list of local organizations offering scholarships. Sometimes it can be found at the high school counselor's office. And that's sometimes a really good first place to check to see what scholarships are available. And then once we've started to kind of zero in on the college that we want to attend, so this is typically more in kind of the spring of senior year, we can really start to look specifically at those colleges to see what type of scholarships or merit. I'm saying scholarships, but merit aid and scholarships are effectively the same thing. Free money that you don't have to pay back, basically. We can start to look at what are those merit scholarships that the specific college we're going to attend offers for undergrads, and we can start to kind of target those applications, right? So yeah, the financial piece of this is huge. College is unfortunately not cheap. You know, we can do everything we can to try to cut away at as much of that cost burden as possible.
Okay.
Looks like I've also got another question, I think directly to me about special considerations for schools outside of the USA. So this is a good question. I will say I am increasingly seeing families look at schools specifically in Canada and the UK, and a little bit of France as well, and then a couple of other countries kind of on the like ones and twos. But yeah, I mean, that seems to be increasingly an appealing option, probably because of cost. You know, typically Canadian schools are really strong academically and a lot cheaper. So that's sometimes a good option that way. In terms of considerations, the first thing I would say is, as you start to think about those schools, really look at the way in which, like, what are the application requirements? Some colleges, especially in Canada and the UK, actually are just utilizing the Common App platform that you know, that a lot of American universities are using. So in some cases, applying to those schools feels not much different than applying to an American university. In other cases, like a lot of schools in Europe use UCAS, which is like an online portal that is kind of like a European version of the Common Application, which is the American portal we use here. So I would say, like, as you build that college list and explore those options, one thing to just kind of note is what are those requirements going to be to get there? And then also really think about, I think going far away from home for students is one of those things that sounds very appealing to sophomores and juniors in high school and even seniors early on. But I find that most seniors, when push comes to shove, don't actually want to go quite that far for school. And so kind of having those conversations early on with your student about what would that be like to be on a different continent, maybe for college. Is that something you think that you could handle? Some students more than happy to do that, but not everyone can. So I think that's an important discussion to have early and often. Okay, so we got a question here about how early can you engage me if interested in services and which grade would be appropriate. So any grade is appropriate. What I would tell you is if you're in ninth grade, I have an online course, and that's probably what I would recommend, because I think it's a good way to kind of move through some of this stuff at your own pace. 10th grade, I have kind of a team with me now. So 10th grade, I will have you work with my partner, Maggie, who's amazing. And then as we get into 11th and 12th grade, that's where I'm typically taking on more students in kind of like a one-on-one or increasingly group type settings.
Thank you, sir. Maria, we're gonna have Maria speak first and then Carol.
Okay, thank you, Nadia, and thank you so much for the presentation. It's excellent. I've got a question about your quantity versus quality in terms of extracurriculars, and kind of looping that into athletics. So say, for example, like if a student has been doing a certain sport for, I don't know, forever, right? Since they were 5, okay? And they're competitive, but maybe they're not necessarily going to be, doing it in college, right?
Sure.
And since they focus so much on that, and maybe they don't have as many curriculars, is that like, do you find that to be a disadvantage? And do they need to kind of round out their portfolio to have more, like other clubs and so forth? Even though they've shown a commitment to that sport for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. So, and I see this a lot actually. So I think it's first worth understanding how the application works. So in the actual application, in the Common App, which is kind of the portal that most colleges are using that your student will use to apply to colleges, we're given 10 slots to list out our extracurriculars. They call them activities, but the same thing. And they give up front a definition of what counts as an activity. And the thing that I'm always reminding and showing students and parents is that it's a really, really broad category, like set of categories. So it's the obvious things like sports and clubs, but there's also things on there like family responsibilities, community engagements. One of the bins is things that have been meaningful to you, which is about as broad as it gets, right? And so when I, think about this quality over quantity thing, I think what I'm saying is that the colleges are not expecting that every student's going to have all 10 of those slots filled out. A lot of my students do, but a lot of them also don't. I think they're also going to expect you to have more than 1 or 2 filled out, right? So I think as you think about kind of that specific sport, obviously that's going to be an important part of that activities list. But if you had to sit down with your student right now and list out what are those other activities, what would that look like? Keeping in mind that all of these things like family responsibilities count, and where do you sit there? And so I think the more that we can kind of demonstrate how we've spent that time outside of the classroom, the better. But I think what you're going to find, and this is what I find with most students, is by the time they get to senior year and they sit down and list out the things that they've done over the prior 4 years, they've done a lot more than they probably initially recognize. And the other thing that I would tell you, and I see seniors try to do this all the time, is they don't give themselves enough credit for what they've done. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with seniors where they'll say something like, Well, I was part of this club, but it was only for a semester, and I don't feel like I did that much. So I don't think colleges are going to care about that. No, let's let colleges make that decision, right? Let's put it on the list. It counts. You should get credit for it. If you spent time doing it, you should get credit for it. In the activities list, they will ask you how much time you spent during each year doing this thing. So you will say how much time you spent, but you should definitely get credit for it if you were involved in it. So the flip side of this is do not sell yourself short, right? Do not discount these things that you've done, because we throw a lot at our high school students in a lot of different ways, and they should get credit for all of it.
Thank you. Did you have any follow-up question, Maria? Or?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
No.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol, thank you.
So I've got, oh, go ahead.
Actually, this is Carol's husband, David. Kenneth, that was an incredibly great presentation. Thank you so much. I learned a lot too, and really detailed. So that was excellent. Real quick question, more, I guess, the finance sort of area here. With like private schools, even the smallest or whatever level or something like that, they are very expensive, the tuition costs and everything like that. Well, what I've sort of also heard though, is that obviously, like you said, they don't want to lose students to other cheaper schools. And so they often will have a lot of opportunities like merit scholarships and other things in there. So I was just kind of wondering, like, as a parent, should we sort of not be afraid of private schools because of the cost in that way? They do offer a lot more opportunities in that regard, almost to match like state schools. Are you seeing stuff like that?
Yeah,
that's
a great question, and it's a great point. And yes, that's always a tricky position for me, and right, because I'm not paying for the students' college. But that is one thing I always recommend to parents is, as we build this college list, sometimes really early on, parents will be like, "Ooh, I don't know, that school's really expensive." That's a school that looks expensive on paper, but it's not always the case. And this is really where we need to start to dig into data. So one really good resource, I'm going to type it into the chat, is College Scorecard. And this is actually put out by the Department of Education. And oops, sorry, I sent that as a direct message to Maria. Sorry about that. Let me put it here. It is a Department of Education website that is not perfect, but attempts to help break down college costs and be a little bit more transparent. And so that is one place I would recommend going and looking. The other thing that you can do is, for each college, you can look at what's called their common data set. So if you just Google the name of the college plus common data set, it will come up. And the common data set is essentially a data set that each college releases each year. And there's a bunch of different sections on it, but one of the sections is about financial aid and college cost. And what it really allows you to do is dig into the numbers. And while, you're not gonna be able to pinpoint how expensive it's gonna be individually for you, you can get a sense of, what percentage of students here get financial, aid, what percent get merit scholarships, what percentage of those students who apply for X get Y. And so that's another place that we can dig in. And then finally, and you've probably heard of this, but the net price calculator for each college is legally required to have one. And what it does is it allows you to input some of your personal financial background into it. It asks you some questions. You put in some financial background for your family, and then it kind of spits out an estimate of what they think costs will be. Now, what I would tell you is not all NPCs are equivalent. Some colleges have better ones than others. But again, we can use these different tools to start to hone in and refine what costs might look like at different schools. And just as kind of a personal point to illustrate your point. So Princeton, I know because I went to grad school there. If you look online at the cost of Princeton, it's going to be a huge, huge, scary number, probably high 70s, low 80,000 a year, right? When I went to grad school there, not only was it free for me. They paid me a stipend to go. And that's not because I'm in any way exceptional. It's because their endowment is so massive. They have so much money that they have ways of using that endowment to help fund students' education, right? And that is something that is very much not transparent or clear if you just look at their website. It's one of those things that you, to be honest with you, I really didn't uncover until I was accepted and they sent me, hey, here's what we're giving you. And I was like, wow, that's nice. You know, so to your point, my recommendation would be don't get scared away by big numbers at first. Again, you know, we want to avoid circumstances where a student absolutely falls head over heels in love with a college, and then you have that conversation at the end where they get accepted and you have to tell them, hey, we just can't afford this. Like that, we want to try to avoid that for sure. But I don't think we need to cut students off of certain schools so early in the process. Let's kind of wait and see how we're moving down the road and really dig into these numbers to get a sense of really how expensive do we think this is going to be for our family.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. I know you said you have two, how many questions did you get on your end? Because I saw one in the chat.
Yeah, so I just have a question on the FAFSA changes. So yes, the FAFSA is changing. I think it already changed a little bit, but it's supposed to change significantly next year. One of the things that they are getting rid of is right now you get kind of a discount if you have two students in college at the same time. And as of the plan at the moment, they're getting rid of that. They're working to make the FAFSA easier, but then there are some things that I think are also going to make it more financially challenging for certain families, specifically that case where you've got two students in college. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I will tell you that I think increasingly families are waking up to that change that is coming. And so we will see if there is kind of pushback on it and if they change kind of the way they're thinking about recrafting the FAFSA in the legislation. But it's a little bit too early to tell, but I am starting to see a lot of discussion about that right now. And then the other question is about applying undecided to a specific college for a major. So yeah, I mean, this is always tough. I think, honestly, I think most high school students, if they're being honest, don't know what they want to major in. I think that we do this thing to high school students and we make them kind of think like, if they don't know exactly what they're going to do for the rest of their lives, they're odd, that they're not normal. And the reality is that, I mean, I don't know what I want to do next year with my life, right? And so I think we kind of do a little bit of a disservice here, and we convince students that you've got to know that you want to be a doctor and here's the mapped out plan. And so I actually think when students tell me like, I think I want to put undecided, I feel like that's actually the most honest answer on an application to the question of, is there an issue with that? For the most part, no. For the most part, most colleges, I think, and I've heard them say that they don't consider that a drawback, that, you know, college is about exploring different interests and options and academic environments. And so generally speaking, when students tell me that they want to put undecided, I think that's fine. There are a couple of schools out there. I was just looking at a chat today about UT Austin, for example, where one of the big kind of things that they do look for in applicants is a real focus on do they have a plan in mind of how they're going to utilize this education for whatever major they're planning to go into. And so at certain schools like that, and you'll just have to kind of do research to see which schools fall into this bin. At some of these schools, it's going to be advantageous potentially to be able to list, you know, a specific major that you want to dive into. So I guess I'll give you the answer to what applies to all questions with admissions is it depends. But generally speaking, for the vast majority of schools and students, I think putting undeclared or undecided is totally fine.
Thank you so very much, sir. I feel like I personally have a lot of questions, but I know I'm going to keep you until like 10 p.m. I actually just spoke to Mr. Wusu. We can maybe like have another session with you and connect with the College Career Center here, who's Miss Somerville,
Absolutely.
and then see if we can get more students to come and have them ask you questions as well and have more parents chime in. So hopefully we can talk more about that down the road. It will not down the road, but like maybe within a few months or so.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
But I really, really appreciate this. I love the discussion. It was very, very informative as well. And I hope everyone here had a great time tonight, and it was impactful and also informative. Huge thank you to Mr. Kenny Scholes. You're such a great resource to our community, and I thank you for being involved and contributing to the community in this way. And I really hope we can connect with you in the near future, very, very near future.
Absolutely. Yep. You know where to find me.
Yes. And I hope everybody here has a great evening. Thank you as well to Mr. Wusu for staying a long time here at the high school with us. And again, thank you for coming in. I hope you all have a great evening. Our next meeting is November 15th. Woo-hoo.
See you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. I'm going to end the call. Where's my thing? Stop recording.